good evening and welcome to Modern Spiritualists Live. Joining me tonight is Miguel, and I'm not going to butcher your last name. Please introduce yourself for us and um, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So you can call me Miguel Cares. That's the easy way, or Cares, if we're using Spanish pronunciation. But um, yeah, I am a reader on Keen, and I'm a practitioner. Don is a title in Curanderismo, which is a folk magic tradition from Mexico that goes back centuries. And my family has been part of the tradition for as far back as we can research.
Really interesting. So, what was it like growing up? Like, was magic and ritual just part of your everyday life?
Yeah, so it's sort of interesting because yes and no. And the no is because my mom considered herself to be modern, and she wasn't a non-believer, but thought that it was time to move beyond and just focus on science, sort of thing. A lot of it had to do with when she grew up. Like my family would receive clients at home all day, every day, and she just didn't want that life for us. So she tried her best to sort of keep me away from the tradition. Um, but everyone else in my family was dead set against that, in part because before I was born, my grandparents had a lot of dreams about me and about what I would be able to accomplish. And so when I was about five, I started being sent home from Texas to Mexico to spend the summers in Mexico.
Hmm.
And that was because my mom, wanted to make sure that I was well connected to our culture, that I didn't forget our village, that I didn't forget, um, what we
Right.
were all about. And my grandparents found that extremely convenient, and so every single summer they would use the entire summers. I didn't realize it at first as much, but with time and especially looking back, they would use the summers to really train me in curanderismo. Um,
Interesting.
so when I was home in our village, yes, magic was part of, and spirituality was part of every day, all day, and for years, when I'd come back to Texas with my mom, we wouldn't talk about that, and then eventually it all came out into light.
Interesting. See, that's just it. It's like not our not our generation, the generation before us. They were very much trying to step away from the old ways, come into the modern times. Did you ever have a talk with her about why, like, Mom, you're working three jobs, you're struggling. Why didn't you do this or why didn't you do that? You knew it. I mean, because they obviously had to have.
Yes, I mean she was trained, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, and what it came down to was a couple of things. One, um, my mom was a complicated person.
Hmm.
Lots of mothers are, right?
Right.
But she was super intelligent and was able to use that in her studies to get a lot of advantages that people generally from our village wouldn't. So, for instance, she was able to come to the U.S. To go to high school in a private school here, and then private university, um, and always had advantages because of her intelligence.
Hmm.
And she just felt like so many of the traditions kept us back, and believed that that was all fine and good. Like she wasn't anti,
Uh-huh.
um, but that now it was time to progress.
Hmm.
And when I dug more and more, it really did bother her that at midnight someone might come to the house looking for a consultation,
Uh-huh.
and feeling like their life was never really theirs,
Hmm.
because in the village and villages all around, people would know you would go to our house to get whatever you needed. So that was not the argument she would make, but if you dug enough, it would come out that that was a big part of it for her.
Yeah, that was the bigger part of it. Is she needed boundaries within that, and instead she just shucked it all.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Question of boundaries.
Okay. So I'm assuming that where is your faith at with that? Are you more what I call covered into the Catholic traditions and it springs through the Catholic view, or do we have our own set of deities that are morphed over the centuries?
So with curanderismo, it's complicated.
Okay.
It's complicated for a number of reasons. One, a curandero family in one village might have a lot of things in common with a curandero family that's, just 5 villages over, but not the same. Because there's no there are things that are universally true and sort of doctrines, but there's no curandero Bible or anything like that.
Right.
And so it really is a spectrum. So in our family, we would say that we're very aware of the fact that we use the saints as a way to connect with our old gods and the old deities. And so, for instance, we have a high reverence for Our Lady of Guadalupe, but we know that Our Lady of Guadalupe is Tonantzin, who is the mother of all gods and goddesses.
Right.
So we would not, right now, I would not consider myself Catholic.
Okay.
Growing up, we would go to Catholic church, and that was part of survival. And
Right.
that's why there's so much Catholic imagery that's part of curanderismo.
Right. And that's how the older traditions survived.
Right. Yes.
Made it through. You want to go into a little bit of that history there on why you had to have a shadow religion, or why traditions had to have what I call shadow religions?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back really to the invasion of our lands of the Spaniards and then later others, and what they brought, in addition to genocide and to stealing all the resources they could get, was the Catholic Church. And at that point in time, especially, the Catholic Church really was a tool of oppression. And the idea was if you could make everyone become Catholic and follow the Catholic rules, then they would be easy to govern. And so that meant that you had to, as much as possible, get rid of the old beliefs, the old traditions, the things that had kept and sustained us for generations, so that we would be ideally to them submissive to the. So turns out they weren't the smartest people around, definitely not as smart as they thought they were, because it wasn't hard for us, just like in many places around the world, for us to figure out, okay, this saint looks sort of like this god, has some of the same abilities and gifts. Yeah, we'll use this saint, but we know the truth, and we know that this is a representation for us of the spirit and the deity that we have known for generations.
Right. It's kind of like comparing, going, oh, so they call her Mary, we call her Shiana. It's the same person.
Right.
And we see this repeated in multiple minority and oppressed or conquered cultures, where they will take and almost like analyze. And I'm sure some of the earlier practitioners would test it out. Does it work?
Right. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
If I pray to San Miguel, Archangel Michael, am I going to get the results of when I was working with Quetzalcoatl? Turns out, yes. And okay, so that works, and we'll use it.
Right. And, I think that's being lost right now. That just little bit of history there about that transformation within spiritual paths and, weaving within shadow work. So how were you during your teenage years? Were you, fully into it? When did you wake up, and what I call what's your wake up story?
There's so many of them. So first, when I was a child, and literally when I was a child, I remember that when I was 5 or 6 or 7, like especially, well, exclusively when I'd be back in our village, like people from the neighborhood, especially wives in the neighborhood, would come to me and lay out their problems and ask for advice. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know that was weird. I know that that's weird now. And I later found out that it was because they had been advised to do that by my grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I didn't know that it was weird, but I knew that it was special.
Uh-huh.
And it was part of my training and me being able to tap in to my spirit guides and the messages from my ancestors and the tools that we use for divination. And then another, I'd say, major sort of awakening point was, I guess, when I was around 15 or 16. Um, that was a couple years after my mom had found out that I had been doing training. Um, and, there wasn't like a moment, but the year 15, I say,
Uh-huh.
was a year when I just constantly sort of felt called to deepen my practice, to learn more, and to actively practice, not just have things stored in the back of my mind, but to actively practice.
Uh-huh.
Um, so, so that was pretty significant. And then more recently, for the last 30 years, I've been an organizer for social justice and various movements, and my spirituality has always been connected to that.
Mm-hmm.
But about 3 years ago, I got the very strong message from my ancestors. Okay, it's time to just fully develop yourself to your spiritual work,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and that's what I've been doing for the last 3 years. So I'd say I've had multiple maybe evolution
Mm-hmm.
openings moments. Yeah.
Right. And multiple growth spurts there.
Yes.
Is
Exactly.
that more of the traditional view, as, looking back, your family would go through phase, the children growing up would go through phases and stages? Or was it more so, you born in, practiced in, and that's all your main focus was until your, retirement?
So I would say it depends.
Okay.
But I would say that um, my family in Mexico, that has stayed in Mexico, it's more been interwoven throughout their lives.
Mm-hmm.
They're usually in the early teens. There's sort of a moment where individuals decide, okay, yes, I want to like dedicate myself fully to this, or no, I want to do other things. Now,
Uh-huh.
even when you dedicate yourself fully, it doesn't mean like becoming a monk or a priest or
Right.
something like that. There are trainings for different levels of service and practice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it is more sort of a constant, and it's coming. There's a moment when you're gonna officially make your decision.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for those of us who are on this side of the border, I'd say it looks more like my experience, where there are times when we're really immersed, and then there's like sort of breaks because the culture is so different here.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's like these opening moments where we can either step through the door or not.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Um, how different is the culture, and how different is the separational way with that imaginary land border that we have?
So uh, I'd say it's more different the farther north we get, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, I should say that while we are our own tradition, our own with our own practices and our own history, um, one of the things that is so rich about being in the U.S. is actually being able to come in contact with other similar traditions, ones that I'd almost call like cousins. So, for instance, in Mexico, we wouldn't so much be in contact with santeros or people who practice santeria. Uh, Definitely not hoodoo or other Ifa religions,
Mm-hmm.
Central African religions. And so here, like, there's an opportunity where we're able to actually grow and learn from each other, and that's special and magical in its own. In fact, I won't get into too many of the details, but I'm actually a moderator on one of the largest hoodoo groups in Facebook.
Really?
Even though that's not my particular tradition, but I've been entrusted to make sure things are copacetic in the group.
Very cool. All
And
right, let's take a break, and then we'll be right back. And when we get back, we'll talk about the last 3 years, because it's been different for you.
Yes, absolutely. Sounds good.
I found out that my husband had been cheating on me, and my whole world turned upside down.
I stressed over any and everything, constantly waiting for the next shoe to drop.
I was attracted to a psychic advisor to get clarity.
I was like, there's no way that's real. But the things that were coming up felt so accurate.
I really need that unbiased, non-judgmental advice. If there's some part of your life that is not quite fitting in, you maybe want to try something that you haven't tried before.
Try psychic reading on your phone. Your first 3 minutes are free. First, choose a topic or method. Second, choose a psychic. Third, start a call or chat. The first 3 minutes are on us. Install Zodiac Psychics now. Talk to a gifted and trusted psychic advisor.
All right. So what's it been like the last 3 years of getting to focus in on your tradition?
It's been really amazing in a lot of ways. The first thing is, it's for decades. Honestly, I've been so busy that I haven't been able to really share our teachings, which is one of the things that I'm called to do, and that the ancestors have asked me to do. And so it's been a huge opportunity now that I'm full-time doing spiritual work, that I've been able to start to share in a number of different areas our teachings. And there's also just a blessing to be able to wake up each day and know that what I decide to do is going to help people. Not that obviously organizing for decades also was about helping people, but in a different way. In this way, helping people, become sort of their full integral selves, and sort of, there's the old phrase "bread and roses." I feel like for the previous 30 years, I was focused on fighting for people to get the bread, and now these last 3 years, I've been able to focus much more on the roses.
Very much so. How's your connection within your tradition been?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
How's the connection within your tradition blend now that you're able to really just focus in on the workings and, helping people? Has it grown deeper? Have you changed deities more? Have you gotten a closer bond with them?
So there definitely is a closer relationship. I will say that over the decades, it isn't as if I had stepped away from my spirituality, but I wasn't working in it, right?
Right.
So definitely it has been more profound. I've had more guides come forward, speak even more clearly, and received, honestly, a lot more blessings. And there've been a lot of moments when I would be worried, and then all of a sudden, things just sort of come that the ancestors know, and that I share with the ancestors that I need, come through. And so it's been an amazing experience, and I've been able to, expand my studies beyond just what we know and have learned in my own family tradition.
Right.
So it's been fulfilling in a way that so often we go through our lives not really feeling fulfilled, if we're honest with ourselves, right?
Right.
but these last 3 years have been about feeling fulfilled.
Interesting. Very cool. How is your world life different now? Working within the two worlds, we will say.
Yeah. So as an organizer, I for 3 decades, I basically worked easily most weeks 7 days a week, and often 80-hour weeks. I literally put myself in the hospital many times, neglecting my own personal physical needs for the good of the movement.
Right.
And I don't regret that. But it was a heavy toll. And so now I'm still able to be an activist and still able to organize and push for the social justice causes that I believe in. But I'm also able to live my full self, and it's a different way of life really than I've known for the last 3 decades. And part of my motivation is I want to help people. Most people can't leave their careers or can't make drastic changes like that, but there are ways that I know that I can help them, and together with their ancestors, discover ways to be more connected and more fulfilled, and less constantly sort of on the rat race run.
Now, you bring up ancestors. Let's define that for a little bit for people, because that term gets thrown around and gets mixed in with mediumship. And we're not talking about calling grandma up to have a cup of tea and discuss her biscuit recipe. What are we talking about here?
So honoring our ancestors is a central part of my tradition and other traditions as well. But, we can't guarantee that we know what deities exist. We believe we do, right? But we do know our ancestors existed by the very fact that we exist. And it's a huge part of my tradition, that we can connect with our ancestors who only want the best for us, who are in a different place. It's different once you've passed on, and we can work with them and build a relationship with them. And what do they want more than for their descendants to do well, to be blessed?
Right.
And so what they ask in return is not that much. They ask that we honor them, that we provide them with water, with food, and communicate, and remembering that they exist and communicating with them. And so to me, it's hard for me to imagine a successful life now or in general if I didn't have that strong connection with my ancestors, and didn't know that right now, as we speak, I can feel my ancestors around me in the same way that I know that your ancestors are around you, and those that are watching us also have their ancestors with them.
Right.
So often, like society in the same way tries to break our connection to magic and to the mystical, has intentionally tried to separate us from our connection with our ancestors because they are a point of strength. And, I consider one of my most important responsibilities now to help people build the connection with their ancestors.
Interesting. Do you think that some of the disconnect that has occurred there is the sanitization of death?
Yes. In a word, yes. I think that's part of it. But I also, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I promise. But to me, it's also clear that, we talked about the invasion with the conquistadores from Spain. In the world history, those that want to oppress people, those that are enslave people, those that exploit people, have categorically moved and taken movements to separate people from their spirituality
Mm-hmm.
and in particular from their ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't think it's a mistake. And so that's why, I think really reconnecting with our ancestors and building our relationship with our ancestors is also not just about bringing in blessing, which it is, but it's also an act of resistance. And it's a way for us to rebuild our power as peoples.
Mm-hmm. And take a moment to talk about that, of rebuilding that power as a people, and finding who we really are too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit cliche. They say that the victors are the ones who write history, right? But it's true. We see right now where all across the country are, especially in the South and in Florida, there are these movements that want to erase so much from history. And they have all kinds of excuses. At the root of it is racism and other oppression, but part of it is to deny our knowledge of the fact that we come from strong people. No matter what we're facing right now, it's almost impossible to look at a people that haven't had strong ancestors and strong resistance to oppression. It's part of, if we're honest about history, it's one of the main drivers of history. And so I think it's a huge part of why there's been so much effort to erase us learning about our true history in the books and disconnecting us from our ancestors so that we forget, oh, we are a powerful people. We were a powerful people. And we can be powerful
people.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And also, I think that a lot of it has to do with not only control, but the feelings of control. Like they're going through their last, death rattle per se in the South and other places, and we're seeing a resurgence of New Age practices. We're seeing a resurgence of connecting back to folk magics. And with that opens up those gateways of spirituality, which were, and let's make this very clear. You don't have to be, I want to make sure I may use this term wrong, and I'm sorry if I do, Latin to do this. You can be any culture.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Including, I just want to make the point, part of the history that they want people to forget is also the history of poor white folk who have also been oppressed by those who were in power, who also organized and built huge movements of resistance and unity with people of color. That's also part of what they actively and all too successfully in many cases have erased.
Right.
So this isn't about just being as people of color, us being able to tap into our resistance. The truth is, the overwhelming majority of the world is oppressed by a very small minority, and all peoples can find their source of resistance and power in their ancestors and fight back. Are there mistakes that cultures have made and that people en masse have bought into and believed, such as racism? Yes. But what they want us to forget is when people learn their lessons, and for instance, during the Great Depression, in mass organized and rejected those very same concepts.
Right. Like Mother Jones and different people taking it on. But no, we're seeing a lot in the metaphysical world. And I think it comes from the other side of the bridge there. You can't do this unless you have this. You can't do this unless this is your ancestral. And that's why I wanted to talk about that real quick before we take a break and come back and jump into some of your classes. That you don't have to be Latin American or Latin to practice this. That this is fully open.
Absolutely. There are traditions that are closed, but honoring your ancestors, connecting with your ancestors is open because we all have ancestors and we all have the ability to connect with them.
Right. All right, guys, let's take a break. And when we come back, we'll delve into what Miguel is teaching us and what you guys can find at Modern Spiritualist, okay? Sound good? Awesome.
Try psychic reading on your phone. Your first 3 minutes are free. First, choose a topic or method. Second, choose a psychic. Third, start a call or chat. The first 3 minutes are on us. Install Zodiac Psychics now. Talk to a gifted and trusted psychic advisor.
For so long, everything was difficult because I was allowing it to be and almost finding more comfort in that chaos.
My psychic advisor really helped me stop and take a breath and look within and be okay with what was happening right now.
Having that 24/7 access is amazing. Just a quick moment to get some clarity.
We are here on a journey and we can't always control it. All we can do is be along for the ride.
All right, welcome back. All right, so I'm just going to open up your page and you start naming off courses and you tell me about them, okay?
Sure.
All right, so first one up is The Power of the Three Sisters.
Okay, so that is a workshop that delves into the Three Sisters is a concept that is part of agriculture, but also has its spiritual roots in indigenous peoples throughout the Americas. And quite literally, the Three Sisters are corn, squash, and beans. We won't get into all of the details about why, but they work best when they work together. So this workshop talks about ways that we can manifest and bring good things into our lives through cooperation, through working with others to manifest our goals.
Interesting. All right, 11 ways to spiritually cleanse an item.
Okay. So this is a very straightforward, hands-on workshop. So often, we'll go out and we'll see something at the store or we'll order it online and we're like, this is amazing. I want to have it on my altar if we have altars, or just as something spiritual in my house. But the truth is we don't really know what energy it brings, and everything brings energy. By mere existence, everything has energy. So this workshop is a super simple 11 ways that we can cleanse the items so that they can serve the purpose for which we want them to serve, and they don't carry forever the stamp of whatever happened to them before they arrived in our hands.
Right, and that's very important, especially if you're working with antiques, used items, thrift storing, that a lot of repurposing that people do.
Yes,
this was an important step, and I learned this step probably 20 years ago. My father used to be the yard sale king. He'd hit them all. He shows up one day with a beautiful desk for my office and a lovely office chair that actually had a footstool piece in it. You could prop your legs up. Thought it was amazing. Within a month, I became the supreme bitch. I mean, I was nasty to people in my household, in my office, all that. And we got to talking about it, and I finally asked him, so where did you get the chair? Because we were having a large debate on it, because I wanted to, and he's like, oh, I picked it up at the yard sale. Come to find out, the person that had the chair went through a divorce and exited the planet in her office. And it was in the office too. And it's like, that chair's leaving today.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So definitely that's a good course to take if you are questioning how to cleanse items. What ways do you look at there? I mean, because I see some Florida water. I think I see some cedar.
Yeah, it's none of them by design. None of them are complicated or things where you need to have, some sort of mystical degree. They're meant to be things that everyday folk can do, because everyday folk needs to do it, right? So the Florida water, there are various methods that you can use Florida water to, if you will, baptize the objects, cleanse the energy with intention. It's important that you're focused on what you're trying to do and what is the outcome that you want to manifest. There's ways that you can use smoke to cleanse items, and it goes into details of why different things work. But I think it's important to understand that this is something you can literally get the workshop and find something in your house that you can use to cleanse whatever item you want to cleanse.
Very cool. And that's important because, you can't always wait for Amazon to deliver incense from India from a certain Tibetan monk that will do something.
Absolutely, right.
Now, the other one is...
And I want to make, and our ancestors didn't have that option.
No, they didn't. And that's more important to as a spiritual community to get back to working with what we got. All right. Now, the next one's a challenge, though. The 28 day ancestral challenge for spiritual empowerment.
Yes.
This one's one of your longer courses. It's not it's not a dessert plate course. This one looks like it's going to be more of a serving plate.
Yes. So, and this goes back to what you were asking me before we went to break, in terms of that everyone can work with their ancestors. And that is the intent, the design, the purpose of the 28-day challenge. And essentially what it is every single day for a month, there's a prompt of something that you can do to build bit by bit your practice of honoring your ancestors. And part of it is that, studies have shown that in order for something to actually become a habit and a practice, it takes more than 2 weeks to do it repeatedly. So that's part of why it's 4 weeks. But also, it's meant so that even though it's 28 days long, it's 28 bite-sized pieces that go step by step and building blocks to where you can really feel a deep connection with your own ancestors without anyone intermediary by the end. It also has 4 or 5 longer videos that go into more complex explanations for why we do the things we do each week, and trainings on different practices. It comes with a journal so that you can keep track either by printing it out of your relationship and your journey in building your honoring your ancestors. Or there's also an option to journal online, and it comes with an online journal as well. I would say that this is the keystone workshop if you really want to build a connection with your ancestors. So often, people get how important ancestors are and want to build something, but the question is, well, where do you start? You start here.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. And that's a good jumping point too. Now we move into manifesting prosperity in our lives.
Yes. So I am unashamed, unabashed about the fact that I deserve prosperity, and so do you. And this workshop is intertwined with honoring our ancestors, because also, what do our ancestors want for their descendants? Blessings. So this workshop has simple methods that you can manifest and bring and attract abundance into your life. And, almost all of us need more abundance. There's a very few people who have like more than they need, and we need to get some from them. But in general, we all deserve more abundance. We create so much abundance that doesn't then come and stay with us. And this gives some easy, again, entry-level practices that you can do to bring abundance and prosperity into your life.
No, and they're not difficult ones.
No, not at all. They're very, very simple, from like simple candle work that you can do with a candle, to things that you can keep around your house in specific places that will attract and draw in money. This is something that anybody can do, and it's designed that way.
And then we move back to working with the ancestors through communicating with them with divination.
Yes. So as we deepen our practice with the ancestors, part of what so many of us hunger for is to hear or get their wisdom and get their guidance, right? Because we know that they have wisdom that we don't yet have, or that maybe has been forgotten or lost along the line. But then it can be sort of challenging to think, well, I don't know how to actually communicate with them. Am I doing it wrong? So this goes through a number of methods that are super simple. For instance, there's one that just involves a handful of coins, less than a handful of coins, to get yes and no answers. There are other more complicated things, but it's all entry level for you to start to build that relationship and start to get answers, so that when you need guidance, I'm just not sure which way to go. Here's a concrete thing that you can do and ask your ancestors and see what they advise. And that's what this workshop is really about.
Very cool. And then we have fundamentals of honoring our ancestors for self-empowerment. How is that different from the 28-day challenge?
So I would say that this goes deeper. It is not just about like the simple practices every day, but it goes into how and why we are empowered through our connection with the ancestors. It does have a lot of the knowledge and skills that you get in the 20-day ancestor challenge, but it brings it forward. I would say it's like the next level. I would often recommend that people start with the 28-day challenge and then move on to the fundamentals to deepen the practice. And a lot of the stuff actually, you don't have to do the 28-day challenge first, but things will click so much easier and quicker if you've done the 20-day challenge and then move on to the fundamentals.
Interesting. And then you cover the 17 spiritual uses of Florida water and include a recipe.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I want to say most people, but I think that's probably the wrong thing. A lot of people have heard of Florida water and have seen Florida water, and it's been used for well over 100 years. For I list 17 uses. There are 100, 101. I don't know if I want to go to 200, maybe. Different things that Florida water can be used for. Whether it's for blessings, whether it's to manifest things, whether it's to cleanse, just to bring in good energy. And often we think that, okay, in order for us to use Florida water, we need to buy this particular bottle that has a particular label that a lot of us are familiar with. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But the truth is, you can make your own Florida water. And I would say if you make your own Florida water, you're going to find that it's even more powerful and it has a little more oomph. And again, nothing wrong with the store-bought, but there's just a sense of joy, I know, whenever I make my own Florida water and use it.
Yeah, and we're not talking like taking the rose petals and boiling them to decant them, and it's not the complicated formula.
You'll need a pot on the stove.
Yeah.
If you can make hard-boiled eggs, you can make this.
Oh, cool. Yes. Because I have to order mine in because I live in the hills of West Virginia, but it does lovely on my wood floors. So if that's a freebie for you guys use Florida water on your wood floors, it makes them shiny. What's your favorite use?
For me, really to cleanse my own energy and to bring in positive energy. it's just like something that I use every single day for that. Applying on my forehead, on the back of my head, on my palms, sometimes even more on my body. And Florida water is one of those things where it not only cleanses and removes negative energy, it actually brings in positive energy. A lot of times we might think, oh, I need to cleanse this, I need to get rid of the negative energy. But we forget that if we get rid of negative energy and don't bring in positive energy, we're creating a vacuum that it's all too easy for negative energy or some energy we don't want to come in. And we've only really done half the job. So part of what is like so great about Florida water is it really does both. It gets rid of the negative energy, but also it brings in the positive energy that we want around us. And so I use it at least once a day to cleanse my own energy.
Right. And that's an important point because, with the universe, you create a vacuum, the universe is going to fill it up.
That's right. Yep.
All right.
And not always in the ways we want.
That waiter really needs to get new hearing aid because they don't hear the word don't. They just hear that type of thing. Yes. And then one of your final courses that you've got uploaded is Manifesting Blessings with Your Ancestors.
Yes. So this again is a workshop that you would take, I would say, after the 28-day challenge, or at least you should already have some sort of practice where you're honoring ancestors before doing this. And by the way, when I say practice of honoring ancestors, I don't mean like having a mass every single day or something super complicated. It really is like having a place set aside where you honor them, where you offer them water, candle, other things. I just don't want people to hear a practice of honoring your ancestors and think it's some really complicated esoteric thing that is unattainable. But you should have a connection first. And what this workshop is really about is how we manifest not just by ourselves, but we actually work with our ancestors as allies in manifesting the things we want, whether it's prosperity, whether it's love. And it walks you through actually designing your own workings. We call it, other people would say spells or whatever, workings to bring about what you desire together with your ancestors. And it goes to 2 or 3 different methods. And again, this is not about something where you need some sort of Hogwarts degree, right? This is something that we can all do, that our ancestors did. And it's the point in all of this is that we can empower ourselves. It's easily accessible and get some amazing results.
Yes, very much so. And you've made it very convenient for those that are really wanting to expand themselves. You've actually put together 2 bundles that contain the same courses. One is the deluxe bundle. It's everything you need to learn to honor your ancestors, and another bundle called Honoring Your Ancestors. So they can actually just literally sign up and take and get all the courses at one time and then work their way through that.
Right. The deluxe bundle has every single workshop that is currently available on Ancestors, and the regular bundle has most of them. There's just 1 or 2 extra little things that aren't part of it.
Right. All right, guys, we're going to take a break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about Miguel, about his reading style. Let's be right back.
Live tarot and psychic readings. Get 3 free minutes on your first session. Find answers and peace of mind anywhere, anytime. Install Zodiac Psychic now and find your spiritual advisor.
was difficult because I was allowing it to be and almost finding more comfort in that chaos.
My psychic advisor really helped me stop and take a breath and look within and be okay with what was happening right now.
Having that 24/7 access is amazing. Just a quick moment to get some clarity.
We are here on a journey and we can't always control it. All we can do is be along for the ride.
All right, welcome back. So tell me about your readings. What do you use? Or do you use playing cards, tarot?
So on Keen, I would say that what I use the most are my tarot cards.
Mm-hmm.
I have always with me my Angel Wisdom deck, which I find is the one that clients tend to like most. And I also have highly developed my clairs, and there are other systems that I think people are less familiar with. So, for instance, when I first learned to read, I learned to read with Loteria cards, which is Latino sort of. It's like bingo, except instead of pulling out balls, there are cards, and the like the bingo sheets are different pictures, and basically we use that system, especially when we're young, because it's all picture based.
Right.
So that was what I first learned to read with.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so and my style is a mix of gentle and kind, yet straightforward, and as much as possible, I try and involve coaching in the reading. I'm not one to just say sort of like, no, he doesn't like you. Next.
Right.
But it's about coaching and figuring out how to get the happiness that people desire. And so often I will answer the questions that people have, but then we will dive into things that they hadn't actually thought about exploring for their own happiness and empowerment.
Right, and that's important because no, he doesn't like you. Well, that's great. Okay, so that option isn't open. You need to take them to the next, to the next option. Or why doesn't he not like you? Why is that not a good mix? So then, the card said it, and that's we just have to go with what the cards say. I like that you take them the next step forward, and take them. You're not just going to leave it like, "Yep, you're getting a divorce next week." Then
No.
what?
Right.
Then what? What's your funnest question you've ever had?
I have to do this in a way that protects confidentiality. But I had a fairly famous football player who came to ask. He was still. So I'm gay and not that kind of gay. So I don't know that much about how these things work. But about the drafts, he was still like in a place where like contracts get traded and he could have gotten whatever. But he wanted to know if his team was going to renew his contract or if they were going to trade him away. And so I read and gave him his answer, which turned out to be correct. But that was sort of cool because it was sort of like very different. Not certainly not what I was used to. Right.
I don't know. It just amazed me some of the things that I'm able to talk about during the reading and have no clue.
Yes.
I am not a car guy. I am far from it. I know to put gas in it. And if one of the lights come on the panel, I call my husband. He gets to deal with that. That's his department. I cook dinner. He takes care of maintenance. But sitting there talking about, well, you need to have the transmission looked at because, and I'm just, and that's when you know that you're in spirit.
The spirit.
That's the whole point.
Spirit finds a way to talk through us and to use us. Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
Or sports. Sports ball is not my department either.
Right.
Did not get that one. Also didn't get the decorator gene. I want to know who got that one because, we could definitely use it. What's your harder situations for you?
The hardest?
Harder situations to read on. The ones that are like, this isn't my department.
So there's a couple. One I can read on finances, but from a certain perspective. My worldview is that of the worker.
Mm-hmm.
To be clear, and quite often I will, or several times, well, no, quite often, I'll have corporate level bosses, kind of people who come for readings and they want guidance on how to be good bosses and manage their employees.
Mm-hmm.
And say I'm the wrong person for them,
Yeah,
because, because that's not my goal.
that's not your department. Yeah. Um, but for me, is I have a real hard time unless it's face to face doing like like evidential mediumship. Like I
Mm,
don't think that this like the phone call or the chat or whatever is the right place for evidential mediumship. What about you?
yes, so I do mediumship, but the mediumship that I do um, is not on Keen.
Yeah.
I think in the years I've been on Keen, maybe once or twice I've gotten a request, and I've been able to communicate some information, but definitely most of the medium ship readings that I do are in person, or not online,
Mm-hmm.
and blessings to those who are able to really connect um, and do excellent, amazing mediumship readings like that. But I definitely, it just feels more comfortable in person.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we're having a conversation in person,
Yeah.
like there are things that will come through
Mm-hmm.
in terms of mediumship and about
Right.
those that have passed, that I just don't get that happen very often when I'm
Right.
online. Yeah.
Right. And it's like tea leaf reading. It doesn't work online.
Right. Yes.
That type of thing. So when do you normally work?
Where or when? I'm sorry.
When?
When?
What's your normal hours?
Uh, that can be a moving target, but I'm
Yeah.
getting better at it.
Okay.
So most days, so I'm Eastern Standard Time.
Mm-hmm.
Most days I'm online by 1 in the afternoon, and generally will be on till 4, and then most days we'll get back on 7 or 8, and we'll go till midnight.
Okay.
But I am very responsive if people use the ping or send me a message or an email.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to arrange a time, I'm really flexible about that.
Right.
So that's never a problem.
All right. And they can always use the alert me a call feature,
That's
which
right.
alerts them when you go online,
Right.
or hop in your line so that when you do come on, they're the first one you get this, or the 15th or what, get wherever they get in the line, they're able to get right to you. So those are really good options.
Yes, absolutely.
So what's your next course?
Um, that's a good question. I have five or six probably cooking in my head, but uh, I think the next one is going to be around love. Not to be cliche at all. In fact, I don't have a cliche worldview of it, but there definitely is a lot of people who want to figure out how to attract love into their lives, and I've got some effective and easy methods
Awesome.
that work and do it. So time
I
to
think
share.
that'll be great. I think that'll be really great. Well, thank you for sitting down with me tonight and talking about your courses and your history. I think you're a great addition to Keen and to our little circle over on Modern Spiritual. Guys, go ahead and check out Miguel Cares on Keen and get his courses on Modern Spiritual, as Miguel Cares also. All right, guys, I'll see you guys next Friday at 6 p.m. Bye, y'all.